Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wise Women Weekdays. You're here with me, your host, Juliette Bryant. And today I am super excited because I have an incredible group of women here, and we are talking about the importance of women's circles. Now, this is something for me that I've been running for over 12 years. I've been holding that space of running women's circles, and they have really transformed my life. And I felt into it the other day and I really thought it was so important to gather women together to share this experience of what it means to us and why it's transformational and why more and more women should come together in this way. So what we're going to do now is we have, as I said, an incredible collection of women. So we're going to go round and everyone, if you could introduce yourself briefly. And then tell me a little bit about your first women's circle, if you can remember. What was it like? How was it? And what did it bring up for you? Okay, so Jackie, we'll start with you.
Hi there. My name's Jackie Perez. I have a business called Jacqueline Eve Intuitive Health and Life Coaching. And my first women healing circle was a long time ago now. And I just really helped change a lot of things for me. It brought out a lot of confidence in me that I was lacking in before. And I absolutely loved it. So now that I'm in the healing space myself now, and I'm actually a healer, I've started a women's healing circle in the local area where I live. And I'm absolutely astounded by the amount of women that actually really are craving this type of get together and connection.
Amazing. Thanks, Jackie. And we'll come back more and hear more about what your people are experiencing. But if we just go around, Yvette, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, thank you, first of all, for having us on. I'm quite excited about this conversation. So my name's Yvette Taylor. I've created, the creator of an energy healing modality called EAM, the Energy Alignment Method. So gathering people in circle for healing is also my vibe. So it's lovely to be able to share this conversation. My very first experience of a women's circle, I think, was I can't even remember how long ago it was now, but for me, it's the deep connection, and there's something ancient in a beautiful way and almost tribal about coming back together in an empowered way. It's not a gossip circle, but it really is a healing space. Even just being in that present with the intention that's set at the beginning, there's something ancient and mystical about it. So yeah, it was like coming back home. That's what it feels like.
Beautiful. Thanks, Yvette. Okay, Becky, over to you.
Hello, so I am Becky Bowen and I founded Becky Bowen and Mother's Touch. Now my journey has really kind of intertwined with Juliette along the way, and you probably introduced me to most things in a roundabout way. We met through a gentle parenting website on Facebook over 12 years ago. I think I was pregnant with my middle son. And the first women's circle I ever went to was yours in your back garden, in your yurt, with a beautiful fireplace and everything else. And then I moved and I lost all of my connections, all my community, and didn't have anything in a town I didn't know. And at the time I had 2 children under the age of 2. And then somebody introduced me to a red tent, which just blew my mind. And I would say probably saved my life, if I'm honest, because I didn't know anybody in this new town. I was completely isolated. And to be honest with you, I'd never experienced a connection with women like this before in my life, other than what I experienced with yourself, Juliette. And to feel that women were supporting me and holding space for me and allowing me to talk, not interrupting me, not judging me and not shaming me, was just something I was totally mind blown about. And today I've learned so much from it about how to listen to other women, not just women, but children, husbands, you name it. It's just that kind of no trying to fix, just listen and allow. And I'm really fortunate now that I'm a red tent guardian. I hold moon circles, sharing circles, healing circles. And yesterday I was at my beautiful friend Laura Cowan, who runs Girls Rising Retreats, which is a mother and daughter retreat. And she takes the girls off and I take the mums off for a mother's circle. And so many of those mothers have never experienced any of that at all. And it's just so needed, but it's not new. It's just the fact that it's new to us. And so that's quite exciting as well.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing, Becky. Okay, Tash, over to you.
Oh, yes. Hi, everyone. First time for me too. Super excited to be part of this. Goodness, snapshot. I worked in the corporate world nearly all my life, and I felt such an urge to provide this healing wellbeing service, and redundancy came along after 16 years being in the corporate world, and it was scary, but it was amazing. And it all happened at the time around as well when I lost my dearest daddy. And I fell into this work of curating the most beautiful sacred sounds and sensory work and women's circles. And I've only been going for a year. And like everyone has said on here, there is such a hunger. It's almost like going back into the womb. You know, we are so powerful, and it's not sex is common in any way whatsoever. But one of my first healing women's circles was, we went to the Ibiza Tantra Festival about 2 years ago. And I literally, the tears, they don't know where they came from. But to this day, when we run our own sound baths and women's circles, I found it very hard. I have to suppress my tears of the energy that you get from everyone else. It's electric, it's powerful, it's central, it's sacred. It is just, it's awesome. And I want more of it. And I get that same feeling that everyone else gets. You know, it's, why would you not want to deliver them and be part of them? It's just amazing.
Beautiful. As you were talking, I could feel the tears welling up with the
I
energy
know.
as well. It's like, oh, I can feel it building.
Yeah, my cheeks are tingling now. Yeah, even here, and the energies that everyone in my life recently over the year, everyone is crossing my paths, and it's like this thread, and it's just all connecting. And whether we've all got any kind of issue, anxiety or emotion or something, we're all there to heal that person, and then that person will go off somewhere else. And it's just kind of the natural kind of process. It's such a beautiful ebbing flow. It's lovely.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing, Tash. Okay,
Okay.
Stella, last but definitely not least.
Oh, thank you, Juliette, and lovely to be here with you all. I'm Stella Grace. I'm a holistic therapist and teacher and a writer and presenter on Kinder Sound. And my first experience of a women's circle was facilitating one, because there wasn't one in my town, and I really wanted to create something that I would have liked to have attended, which I did. And it was just stunning. I've been running them for a couple of years, maybe 2 or 3 a year at key kind of significant times on the wheel of the year to kind of coincide with the natural cycles. And I found a lot of power and connection in that. And I just wanted to create something that I wanted to go to, and then felt very privileged to be able to share it with the women that came. For me, and very much kind of in keeping with one of the themes of the book that I'm writing, one of my areas of expertise, if you like, from personal and professional experience, is trauma, and alchemizing the gold from it to really progress and develop and move on and grow. And I think for me, women's circles encapsulate so beautifully one of the key aspects of that alchemy process, and that's the safety. And that's, to me, is what I hope to create, and what I love to attend for, is that safety with other women, to be able to be, like somebody else mentioned the word, like allowing and listening, and just be in that feminine sacred space where we can uncover our wounds, or not, just as little or as much as we want to share. But that safety element is kind of the first thing that springs to mind for me, as that connected space, that feminine space.
It is so important, that safety aspect of it. And like you, my first women's circle was one that I was holding because there wasn't anything there. And as I had a child, and I'd moved to a new area, and I was a single parent, and I just felt that need to connect with other women. And for me, I had always struggled with my connection to women. I didn't like women that much. I preferred hanging out with men. That's what I always said. I got on better with men. And it was when I had my first child, and my mum died when I was 21, so she wasn't there, and I felt that real need to have people to talk to who actually were the same sex, who I could relate to in this deeper way. And because there was nothing, I thought, well, I'm just going to set it up, and as you said, Stella, do it how I would like to be, in the space I'd like to be in.
Yeah.
And what we did when we were doing it is, I said, okay, how about all the people that come each month, a different person kind of runs it. And we started doing that, but what we realized was unless one person is really anchoring in the energy and creating that container of, as you said, you've all kind of touched on that safe space, it doesn't work. And so that kind of became my role of being the one to hold the space, and then other people would lead different parts of the sessions, which was beautiful because then it allowed other people's gifts to come through. And that for me was a really special thing. So what I'd love to do is I'd like to get into, and we can kind of have a bit of a free flow in this, but when we think of women's circles and we think of coming together, like what would you say would be the blocks that you feel for coming together, or in the past have you felt any blocks? So I'm opening that up to whoever wants to speak first.
Yeah, I felt it, and we did actually have a woman come forward to us in one of our sessions, and she was going through a very difficult time, and I think it was just very much of reiterating and giving that trust, knowing that they're in a safe place, that as trained facilitators is what we are trained to do, and it's just ensuring that they know and that they do feel comfortable, because we are, I think very much even on this group, we're all incredibly confident, but not everyone is like us. And it is just allowing and giving those people, knowing that they're going to be safe in that environment.
Yeah, beautiful.
Do you know, one thing I found when I first went was the literally having to sit on my hands, because what I love about women's circles is whatever everybody shares, I think most people in that space can relate to whatever's coming up for them at that time. And it's like that Me Too thing, isn't it? Oh God, I feel that way. Oh, but if I did that, and you can do this and you can do that. And actually that's really hard to navigate, but a really powerful tool once you have. But yeah, I wanted to interrupt everybody all the time and tell them what I thought, and actually people don't need that. And that's a really hard lesson to learn, but an amazingly powerful one once you do learn it.
And also as well, there is the tool that you can use, which I'm sure you've all used, which is the talking stick, to allow everyone, to give them that little bit of space, and so everyone feels that they can listen to everyone, and then they can just gradually pass it around the group. I find that's quite a nice tool to use.
Absolutely, Tash, but I still found I wanted to interrupt everybody.
Oh God, yeah. I'm like so excited, but I'll be quiet.
I think Tasha touched on something really beautiful, important for me in choosing where to go, and someone who is actually able to hold space. The number of people in all kinds of different therapeutic environments, and not necessarily that circle is that, but it is a safe container, and the safety is created, as you said, by the person holding space. So for me, is knowing and trusting the person who's getting to know and understanding who that person is who's holding space, because very often people step into this space to heal their own stuff, and they're not necessarily in the space to be able to hold space for others. And that is one of my fundamental things. It's beautiful that people want to step in. We all need to start somewhere, but starting with someone, training with someone who's already held space, learning what it is, because people are entrusting you with their life, with their heart, with their vulnerabilities, and it's so important that someone is actually able to hold that and be able to manage the energy of the group. If someone's sharing something vulnerable, or if someone's sharing something traumatic, that you're able to receive that, hold that, and move them through that journey.
And also as well, it's like you said, making sure that everyone else in the group isn't a bit freaked out or a bit like, uncomfortable. They need to know that that we all are all women, and we all become the mothers, and we're all kind of, the arms come round, we're all together, and it's
and that's not in any way to make it exclusive, but it is a therapeutic space.
Do you know what though? I sat there in circle, and at the time I had small children, and this was a different circle that I'd gone to, and the whole non-judgment, non-shame, and it is really important, I think, not to have, because I shared that I was struggling with at the time, you know, feeling overwhelmed. My kids, I felt like I was just overwhelmed by everything. My husband, and it was literally, I was sharing where I was at, and the space holder said, I'd give anything to have children. And it was like, oh, now I feel really guilty for sharing about how I'm feeling, knowing that you don't have children, and oh my God, the drop in my stomach. And that was that, we must not comment, no matter how. Look, she was probably trying to make me feel better, but actually it didn't make me feel better. It made me feel so much worse that I felt like I couldn't share where I was at. And I think that's, again, it was another valuable lesson along the journey as a space
That's,
holder, is how
that's brilliant. That's really a really great point. And also as well, it is very important that we're not making this about us. It's about everyone else. As a healer, we're healing, and we're not going into these spaces for us to be healed, I find. Do you get where I'm coming from?
absolutely, yeah.
And it's like, you know, our socials. I find that I have to be careful to not make it all about me. It's about what we can do for everyone else, what tools we're giving, how we're going to heal, how we're helping that person. And we are very much, you know, we're listening, absorbing, and not giving the answers. We're just allowing that person to offload on whatever emotions come up, whether it be tears or whether it be talking. Everything is invited, but it's not about us.
Actually, as you say that, one of my favorite points that we mention in Red Tent and any other circles that we do is that we've got tissues here, but we never pass you the tissues, because by passing you a tissue is like saying your tears aren't welcome, please dry them, you know, don't share. Whereas it's all of you is welcome, literally all, like every part of you, every emotion, every and that was again another like, oh wow, we're so quick to fix people that we don't actually allow them to, you know, heal themselves.
I think that is the key, isn't it? We all want to, we have this desire as women, we're nurturers, and we want to jump in and support and hold. And sometimes the best medicine is just to give that space. Stella and Jackie, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I was as you were talking, is really resonating with kind of a more obvious one. I really connected with what you said, Tash, and similarly what you've said, Becky, as well, about what would have been a barrier to me a few years ago would have been fear of judgment. And some of the women that have been along have said the same thing, you know, fear that people are going to be bitchy, fear that there's going to be judgment. And actually looking at my own journey, there would have been a majority of time up until recently where I wouldn't have had the confidence to go. So although I'm confident in myself now, there's many years, most of my life previously, I wouldn't have been confident to attend for that kind of reason, you know, fear of judgment. And of course, as you do your own healing, as you look at yourself and you do the work, you realize that, of course, a lot of that judgment is the judgment upon oneself. You're actually reflecting that view of oneself.
We are a reflection of ourselves, everything in our life.
And that, you know, ongoing. So it's for me, there was an interesting consideration at one point about how I was advertising the women's circle, because really wanting to, you know, promote inclusivity and really wanting to open it out and again portray that safety of that space. So that was something that was a consideration on how we kind of marketed the event itself, in terms of women who didn't know me or who maybe hadn't been to one before, because again, as we're talking about, we don't want to come from a place of it being about us, but we certainly, I mean, for me, I've certainly used my own journey for understanding and empathizing where others are coming from. So so it's been helpful to kind of look at that and to hear, you know, what's now a really good friend from somebody who's attended. She said the same thing, you know, I thought people were going to be bitchy. I thought it was going to be, you know, that challenge of that environment. So I think that's an interesting kind of barrier to think about.
Yeah, beautiful. Jackie, what about you?
Well, I'm actually quite new to running them myself. I've only been in my new area just under a year and a half. So this is actually quite a new journey for me, being the facilitator and the space holder. But it's really interesting because as soon as I started putting feelers out in my local community about women's healing circles, and then, as I said at the beginning, the amount of interest was absolutely, I was blown away. But then I think that what does come in is the fear of exactly what, you know, all the lovely ladies here have been saying. It's the fear of judgment, and is it going to be a safe space, and what do I expect? And you know, I have never been a particularly confident person, and again, it's through healing that I've learnt to be, you know, more myself. And so I was very mindful right at the outset of reminding people, you know, this is a really safe space. And actually, in the first one that I ever did, somebody did get upset, and so it's just saying that's fine, this is a safe space, and just reassuring all the time. But yeah, you know, it's a lovely place. And I think very quickly, because I've only got a very small group of ladies, that trust is already developing, and the ladies were really, you know, interacting with each other really nicely. So it's just developed really in a really organic way.
Beautiful. One of the things that, you know, a few of you have mentioned, which I think is such an important thing to tap into, is, you know, we have this for some reason. You know, when I think back to when I was at school, girls were very bitchy.
Oh God, yeah.
And, you know, there was a lot of backstabbing, there's a lot of jealousy and resentment and all this stuff going on. And, you know, I was bullied by girls a few times in my life for being too weird or too different and all this different stuff. But why is it that we have this at such a young age, this going against our own, really, you know? And yet, when we can and we make space to drop into the space of being connected to other women, it's the most powerful healing tool I think we have, that sisterhood of coming together. So I'd love to know you guys' thoughts on why we have this bitchiness, and yet on the other hand, the most supportive, loving, trusting relationships.
God, how did
Maybe
you know?
That was like, how long have we
Amazing.
got? That's a 3-hour conversation.
I know, well, let's just summarize.
maybe it's because we've just all finally matured into mums or women, or maybe it's just simply maturity. I don't know. Or maybe we needed to get to that point and go through our own pain on our own growth, or our own, I don't know. But even my daughter, she's 17, and she's gone through it, she's still going through it, and it's just, you know, it's awful. And I keep telling her it's only temporary, trust me. But even to this day, I'm 47, and it still does happen. But whether that's a reflection of them not being where they want to be, or I don't know, but
I
that's
feel
a snapshot.
Yeah, I totally hear you, Tash. I feel as well like there's you know, again, we could talk about this for hours, but I feel there's so many facets to this part of the discussion, and actually on different levels. So we've got our own personal, like you mentioned, Tash, it's a journey, maturation, you know, how far what work we've done, how much we've healed personally. But then there's also the collective and the societal kind of impact of conditioning, and that being so huge. You know, we might be, you guys might, I'm sure you've read around like the witch wound, and, you know, we've got that lineage of that trauma is embedded in our feminine lineage. You know, that's a real thing, that we're, you know, healing and growing from the residue of, if you like. But also it's, you know, that why we have those issues is why we want to do the work and to offer these groups out, because that's where that's powerful portals for our healing. And, you know, another aspect for me of around why that bitchiness or that energy has been difficult, and then trying to you know, offer a solution and an evolutionary point to grow from it or with it, is around the actual space to be feminine, to what it means to be feminine, developing our intuition, connecting with, you know, our bodies in a sacred way, sharing information about that, using nature's gifts, essential oils, you know, whatever is in line with you know, all our feminine attributes. So it's like the area that points to why we're healing is the area that's the antidote as well.
Mhm.
Beautiful.
Agree, Stella, 100%. I mean, I've done a lot of work around the witch wound, the epigenetics. So like we carry eye colour, hair colour, we can also carry our wounds to our next generation. So if you think the witch wounds the witch trials, sorry, weren't really that long ago, and women were pitched against each other. That's what I was saying, how deep you want to go. You know, it wasn't safe. Like, we would have had to have kept our family safe, ourselves safe. So we would have been made to kind of talk about other women to keep ourselves safe. And that, however you want to look at it, we're not going to be able to get too much into it on this show. Maybe it's another show for you, Juliette. But, like, the epigenetics of it is yeah, it's so strong still now. You know, I've done a lot of work around it, but even within that collective group, there's still so many wounds, and we were specifically working on those wounds, and it's going to take a while, but we can just do our little bit and kind of change that within those spaces as well. I've made some best friends through women's circles, and you know, I probably would never have met them otherwise, but yeah. It's powerful.
Very.
Also, the fear of being vulnerable as well. I think, I mean, it's hard to really explain how instinctively women can be so bitchy, and the things that happen. I mean, I've been bullied as well as a child, but I think, you know, we're scared to be vulnerable, and as you know, it's such a powerful thing. But when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, certainly in my younger years, my experiences, that is when I was bullied. You know, people didn't like the fact that I was vulnerable, or perhaps more gentle or calmer than everyone else. I don't know. It's a tricky one. So then, you know, you have got to relearn that trust, don't you, as you go through your life and start to heal.
There's so many books on it, isn't there? Sorry, with like I'm trying to think now. Burning Women, Lisa Lister. Like, there's so many books that talk about this wound that we don't know about until we uncover it, and then it is like that makes so much sense. Why are we grown up in this way?
Oh, sorry.
No, go on. Sorry, I was just saying.
What are your thoughts on this?
Like I said, when you said it, I was like, this is a 3-hour conversation. Where the challenges lies, I think everyone's touched on the key pieces of the puzzle. I think at school, particularly in any of our lifetimes, we've also been stepping through a generation where girls have been taught how to be in the world and liberation, but a lot of that liberation has actually come in a very masculine way. So I think a lot of us have been trying to do the hierarchy thing. If I think back to how I was at school, I was the eldest in the class, but I was the protector. So I'd be the one that's going and sorting out the bullies. I wasn't bullying, but so there was always this kind of pitting against each other, finding our space, finding your group. I think that's a normal part of society, like finding the people you vibe with. But and also to vibe with the people you vibe with, you're also semi against another group of people just because they're different. It is how humanity's been. But I do believe that as women, we've been doing that definitely for the last 50, 60, 70 years in a very masculine way, or stepping more into a masculine way. If you think back 100 years ago, girls were girls. They probably were still picking on each other, but we were doing jump rope and, you know, plaiting each other's hair. There was an element of bonding in a much more feminine way that we probably haven't had. And now with obviously for young teenage girls, with the uptake of social media, it's another level of competition and they're pitting themselves against themselves before they even step out of the door. And even just as we're having this conversation, I think someone touched on a women's circle group for mums and teenagers. I think we need to be launching women's circles for teenagers now because, you know, they're not being taught, because the mums haven't been taught. So how can we go and heal?
You made a really good comment on, sorry to interrupt you, so sorry. You made a really good comment on masculinity and femininity. And I find that for me, and I think it's something maybe we'll all resonate with, I think it's taken quite a long time. It takes nearly all your adult life, half of it, to actually understand, to work in parallel with male and females. You both become healthy masculine and that healthy feminine combines as one. And when you're more of that masculine, when the woman is more of the like, it just doesn't work. And the same for a man. And that's something as teenagers that they don't know yet, and they don't know how to get to there. And I think teenagers really do need they need real guidance and real help with their growth. And I mean, like you said, this is such a huge conversation. The social media is such an impact. It really, really has. And do you have children? Do you have a daughter?
Me, I've got a little boy, so I've got two little boys.
Oh wow! So no
So
girl. Who's got
no,
girls?
no little girl, no.
Who's
I've
got
got
girls?
3
I have.
boys as well.
Oh, have you? Wow. Has
Girls.
anyone else got a girl?
Yeah, I've got a
I've-
13-year-old
girls.
daughter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mine's 17.
And
I've
three
got a
boys.
girl and a boy.
Yeah, but it's hey, it's the same for boys and girls.
But I
in
think this is
particular.
another, I mean, I know we're talking about women today, but with men, like we're a bit further ahead. I remember listening to, is it Ollie Ollerton, who's like the SAS guy. I can't think of like the way to describe him, but he said, I remember reading one of his books and I put it on when the kids were in the car as well. And he was saying one of the biggest contributors to suicide and depression and anxiety of people leaving the army is the loss of brotherhood. Because when you're in the army, you have that brotherhood, you have that banter, that talking, and even like going back further, you know, when men would have gone out to battle, they would have sat round the fire and decompressed and debriefed. Even going back to my granddad's generation, he would have gone down the pub after work, you know. My husband doesn't do but that isn't a thing really well, I mean, not in my circles anyway. It's not the same thing, and that is so missing in society. And I know we're talking about women, but it's so prevalent for the men as well. It really is.
Yeah, like
yeah.
we've got a sound bath coming up, a big one coming up in about 2 weeks' time, and you know, there's about 30 women that come together, and I've had a couple of guys saying, do any men go? Can I join? And then this one guy made a joke, said, oh, I'll put my frock on and pretend that I'm a woman. And I felt really kind of like, I want men to be coming. But it really does seem to be very female dominated. Dominated is the wrong word, but it does, whether we're more open to the nurturing and the love. But there are men who do want to come. My partner, he's amazing. When we were in the Ibiza festival, it was a whole collection of men and women and trans and all sorts, and everyone was in it together. And there were men crying, you know, even my partner, he had tears. And I really, and Fern Cotton made a good point actually the day I saw in her podcast that, you know, they do these huge sound baths, and you know, I think she maybe had 2 or 3 men that came, and they all said afterwards, why are there no men here? Why? Then she actually put out on her social feed, why aren't there men coming? Why?
I think on that, you know, men, I think as women need a space for women, men need a space for men. And I think that, you know, we've spent so much time interlaced with as we've talked about, women kind of and girls trying to be more masculine to fit in this world and strive for everything, that we need that space where we can just drop into not having that, you know, people change when they're around the opposite sex, because that's what happens. This, like, you know, even if you don't change a lot, there's a changing in your demeanor towards the opposite, and there's a blending of energy. So women need that space where they can just go, whew, and let that go. And men need that too, in that own space. And I think, you know, more men need to be, and they are coming forward now. I think there is a rising movement within men of this support, this community, so that men can have their own things going on, because otherwise, you know, it gets diluted, and ultimately that sexual energy then kind of becomes in the mix, which dilutes that, I think, women being able to really drop into their heart and be vulnerable.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think as well, it's really reflected in society, in the collective, and it's really relevant to what we're talking about men as well, because this imbalance of the masculine and feminine being so intrinsic in, you know, all the areas in society, even down to the working week, is masculine energy driven, because it's, you know, the majority of ours 40-50 hour week, and that downtime is short. You know, it's the doing, the striving, rather than the being and the softening and the flowing, and that not being in balance. So it's reflected out there as much as it's reflected within each of us, men and women, where a really interesting kind of concept I find with this discussion and, you know, in wider sort of, you know, going about life and going about holistic work, is that balance of masculine and feminine within oneself, male or female, whether it's, you know, a man or a woman. And that being so intrinsic, yes, the men need to be men in that space around other men. They also need an acceptance to have a feminine side, however, you know, however, whether a smaller or larger degree. And the same with women, you know, we need our space and our connected time as women, but also we're not entirely without a masculine side. So it's such an issue of balance.
And that's, you know, having held kind of women's circles and women's spaces for such a long time, you know, over 12 years now, one of the things that I always see, and it is a concern of mine, and certain areas, you know, this becomes more prevalent, is when women start to get really in touch with their womb and their yoni and the feminine, and drop into that feminine space, you know, it can be quite a dangerous pendulum swing, because then they can lose touch with the fact that we are feminine and masculine, and these two do need to be in balance. And what happens is then you get the toxic feminine, where they are too much just about the flow and their emotions and their feelings, and they don't get anything done, and they get lost in this world of floatiness.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something I talk about a lot in my groups, is that importance for honoring both sides and needing both in balance.
Yeah, I love
Anything, oh, my brain's gone now. Oh my God, what am I trying to say? The balance, like anything, too much of anything, that's what I'm trying to say. Too much of anything is not a good thing. Everything in moderation, and not moderation, I don't think,
Balance.
but like, yeah, the balance is so key, isn't it? It's so important.
Yeah.
And
sometimes, though, I think we have to be that pendulum, don't we, where in order to find the balance, you know, a lot of us have been in the masculine so much, and we've been programmed in our early lives to be in the masculine, out of our intuition, out of our emotions. Emotions aren't good, you know, intuition's not good, like drive.
I think a lot of that is survival though as well, isn't it? We're in survival mode. I know certainly for me growing up, I was in survival mode a lot of the time. I had to do this or be this, and to operate in that way. So it wasn't necessarily safe to be in the feminine mode. So to be able to fully feel that now feels good. You kind of want to be in that floaty place all the time. I totally get it. It's really hard.
And that was the whole thing about healthy feminine, healthy masculine. It's like what you just said, it's so powerful, and connecting with your yoni and your sacred sensuality is that inner goddess. It's so powerful.
Yeah,
It's
so exciting. And sorry, I was just going to say, it's so exciting of where we're moving as a collective with the energy, having these discussions, you know, and we think back to the witch wound, and we think back to our own childhoods, even of where it wasn't safe to have these conversations, where it wasn't safe to voice your intuition, and all of those things that we've discussed. I find it incredibly exciting about how things are moving, that the intrinsic imbalances are being considered and readjusted now. The working week, for it, you know, an example again on this, people are talking about having 3-day weekends, and the system changing, and it being, you know, less driven, and it might not all be happening overnight, but you know, the fact that we're here as a group of women right now having this conversation, you know, and safe to do so, and this to go out on, you know, national international coverage, that's quite phenomenal actually, if you think where we've been and where we can be going.
Yvette, what were you going to say?
Oh, so many things. I feel like everything you've said, I'm like, oh, and like you said, I have to sit on my hat. I think the big shift, and I really resonate with what you just said, Stella. The whole time we've been sat here, I was like, right, we need to launch a national women's circle collective community, and like build a network of men's and women's circles. And I was like, my masculine brain running. I'm just putting that out there. Let's make it happen. So the piece that you were just talking about, the extension of this is, we need to all prioritize not just being in circle, but the coming togetherness. And it's for so many reasons right now with what is happening in the world. I think communities have been lost. I think connection is missing. I think women's circles are exceptionally powerful because we do have a very different way of viewing and seeing the world. Our intuition is second to none, just putting it out there. It is what we're ninja at. But also, as we step into our feminine, we step back from being in that masculine space, and therefore not give, because we're not giving the men anything. By stepping out of the masculine space, the men are then able to step fully back into that, because we have been stealing their thunder in many ways. And I think many of us are actually craving, speak for myself, craving stepping back into the feminine much more. And the only way we're going to change it is by making it actually happen and putting that into practice. The challenge that many people have is that we've been living in this masculine society, which is so financially driven. And right now, money is the big thing that stops people from having the space to be, because we've been so driven by doing this. And this is my whole mission at the moment with one of the projects we're running, Wealth Through Purpose, is helping people get that money behind them, so that it isn't a choice of, do I have money or do I be me? It's like, actually, I have the money and I get to expand and be me, so that we can come together in circle and collaborate and do things more purposeful with our time, that aren't then motivated by money alone or survival alone, because it's the wrong energy that comes into this. So I do think this is such a magical thing. I think we should be promoting a 4-day weekend, a 3-day work week. And then just, because the magic of transformation, and we all know this, comes from the being. That the more time we spend in being, and this is one of my intentions for this year, is I want to be 80% in my energy work and 20% of the doing. And then the 20% that I'm doing creates 80% of the results, without it having to be the very masculine way. And I think that's something very powerful we could bring by empowering women to step back into their femininity, because that's actually where our magic really lies. There you go.
Can I just
you.
read you my tea bag quickly? It sounds really bizarre, but as you were talking, it says unity is the way of grace in harmony. So unity is the way of grace in harmony. And that felt really apt as you were speaking then, as to what I think where we're all coming from.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Jackie, do you want to add anything to that?
Not really, no. I mean, it's, amazing comments. I feel that within my circle, what I'm really trying to get across is, one, it started off with grounding and connection, and it's learning how to come back to center and empowering women again, to make them feel empowered, even in a vulnerable state, and that it's okay to be that way. And I go through different topics, and just bringing an awareness of the different aspects of healing, really, to, as I say, it's about knowledge and power, and empowering ourselves in the balance of masculine and feminine, and in lots of different ways.
Beautiful. I think one of the things, that is so key is realizing that when we are vulnerable, maybe not when we're a teenager and young, but when we're vulnerable, and when we can really open up to that space of the depth of us, that is our superpower. That's when we really shine. That's when we find that gold within us, is when we can actually just open our heart out and be who we are. And that's been my mission for a while now, just to be me as much as I possibly can all the time, whether it's crying, whether it's laughing, whether it's being, spinning around the garden, whatever it is, it's being in that space of like, who am I, and what brings me joy, and where is the truth of myself? And I think that is such an important part of women coming together, is being able to give permission almost to others. When people see each of us opening up into our vulnerability, they go, oh, well, if she can do it, then I can do it. It's okay. And I think that is such an important thing. We're going to have to wrap it up. So one quick last word from each of you about this subject. Anything. Okay, Jackie, over to you. We'll go round in an order.
I just think that women's healing circle is so powerful, and I'm really, really blessed to have started this journey doing these, and I'm going to continue. And I'm just starting in my new rounds. It's been so much interest, so just want to empower women and give them space to be able to, like you've just said, to truly be who they really are.
Amazing. Thanks. Stella, over to you.
I just love that we even had some of the magic of the universe, you know, through your tea bag thing, Becky, because, you know, I think that just sums up what we're doing. We're opening up the feminine, our intuitive aspect, the magical aspect, the psychic, all of the women's, you know, feminine attributes. And we've actually had it in action as we've been talking, which I think just sums it up really. And to get this message out, I'm just all for it, to be a part of it and excited. And, you know, doing this work on this earth at this time is, you know, a phenomenal privilege, and to be able to support other people to raise their frequency, raise their awareness, and shine as we uniquely are is, you know, an honor and a privilege and very exciting. So thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Okay, Yvette, over to you.
Oh, everything that's been echoed. I think for anyone tuning in and listening, if you haven't experienced a women's circle, find one. Be with other women, you know, find the safe space to be, but share yourself and watch the magic unfold. It isn't only what happens in the circle, it's the change that happens in you within that, and then how you start shining in the world in a very, very different way. I know we've had a long conversation, but I don't think we've even touched the surface of what the magic of a women's circle or any circle really can be. So if you haven't experienced it, go. And if you've been to one before and haven't been for a while, go again. And yeah, just connection. I think that's the big thing. Just find that like community of people to be around, where you can be all of yourself and learn more about who you really are.
Becky, over to you.
Yeah, I echo what Yvette said. Find your sisters, find your tribe. Just so much gratitude. And to quote what one of the mums said to me yesterday, more of this, please. That's what her words were after coming to the circle space. And I completely agree. We need more of this. Definitely.
Beautiful. Thank you, Becky. And over to you finally, Tash.
Can I just say, we've just created all this magic here now. With sparks coming off like our phones, and this is it. I don't need to say any more.
Amazing. Well, I'm very, very grateful to you all for coming on here and sharing your time and your knowledge and your wisdom and your intuition and your beauty and your radiance. It's been really lovely. And as Yvette said, I don't think we've even touched the surface, but it's a start, and it's something I've been thinking about, you know. But in person, how great would it be to have more times when we gather together and talk and share it with people, record it and share these conversations that are so important and that can make such ripples in the world. And, you know, I think that we all need to be doing that and putting out these messages of what's really helping us, what supports us, what helps us to thrive and to shine every day, what helps us to get through the times when we're feeling like crap and struggling to get through the day. Because, you know,
I just say something really quickly? I don't know, I don't know who follows me on Instagram. I mean, I really am quite new, but I put something on my story this morning, and I'm going through perimenopause, and this morning, yesterday actually, I felt hormonally awful, and I put my story this morning about how I was feeling and how much of a taboo it is. And as the more I voice and the more I talk about, I'm healing already. And I where I was this morning and where I am now, I am a completely different person, and it's amazing. And you guys have like catapulted me back up here. Just like the best medicine tonic ever.
Amazing. Thank you. So if you're interested in getting in touch with any of these incredible ladies, all of the details will be in the description so that you can reach all of them. So we can link all together, all of us can link together, and we can link everyone out there with us. So all of that will be in the description. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today. It's been really beautiful to have this conversation, and I feel more coming. So you've been with me, your host, Juliette Bryant. Have a great day. Lots of love.